For 2026, I'm cutting back on tomatoes in the garden. I realize the goal isn't the bigger harvest, it's growing what my family actually eats. So I'm switching that space over to sweet peppers, Brussels sprouts, and winter squash. Here's why this strategy will save us more money and fit our needs better. Tomatoes have always been one of the most reliable crops in my garden. In 2025 alone, they produced 180 pounds of food, which is a lot for the space they take up. But here's the thing, even though my goal is to increase my garden's total harvest, my family simply doesn't need more tomatoes right now. In fact, I still have 20 pounds of tomatoes sitting in my freezer from last season, waiting to be turned into sauces or soups. We've already made plenty of preserves, and fresh tomatoes just aren't something we eat in huge quantities. So for 2026, I'm intentionally dialing back the amount of tomatoes to 140 pounds. Not because they didn't perform well, but because they produced a little too well for how much we use them. By growing fewer tomatoes, I'm opening up garden space for crops that better match how my family eats and that will save us money at the store. That being said, this is something I will reevaluate every year, especially as the kids get older and our tastes change. For now, it's about shifting focus from just growing a lot of food to growing food that brings real value to my family. Last year, onions took up a surprisingly large amount of space in my garden, about 44 square feet of my 275 square foot growing area. And all that space gave me roughly 45.77 pounds of onions in 2025. Don't get me wrong, onions are useful. They add great flavor to meals and they have their own unique nutritional benefits. But they are also one of the most affordable vegetables to buy at the store. On top of that, I lost a good portion of my onion crop to pests last year, which makes that large space investment feel even less worth it. So in 2026, I'm cutting my onion space in half, but I'm still aiming to harvest about 40 pounds. The difference this year is that I'm going to focus on growing them more efficiently, with better pest protection, better conditions, and less wasted space. If I can get almost the same harvest from half the space, that frees up more room in my garden for crops that provide more nutritional benefit and bigger savings. Potatoes are staying right where they are in my garden. They are getting the same 48 square feet they got last year. In 2025, that space produced about 68 pounds of potatoes. And for 2026, I'm aiming to bump that up to about 72 pounds. Not by giving them more room, but by picking better varieties. Last year, I experimented with fingerling potatoes, and honestly, we didn't love them. The flavor wasn't our favorite, and harvesting all those little potatoes was a lot of work for not much payoff. Digging through the soil for handfuls of small potatoes felt more like busy work than a satisfying harvest. This year, I'm switching to larger yellow potatoes, a variety my family enjoys more, and that typically produce a higher yield for the same space. It feels good to focus on crops that grow well, taste better, and make time in the garden and the kitchen easier. Sweet peppers are one of the most expensive vegetables we buy regularly at the store, which makes them a really smart crop to grow well, which I do not. In 2025, they were one of my biggest struggles, and in 2024, and in 2023, and so on. They've always been my biggest struggle. All season long, I battled pests and issues like blossom and rot, and in the end, I ended up harvesting less than 4 pounds of sweet peppers. So in 2026, sweet peppers are getting the royal treatment. I'm changing how I grow them, focusing on soil health, consistent watering, and better pest protection. My goal is to increase the harvest to 36 pounds. I harvested 4 pounds. I want to increase to 36 pounds. Anybody think that's going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. That alone would make a big difference to our grocery bill and the nutrition coming out of the garden. Winter squash is another crop that didn't perform the way I hoped it would in 2025. Last year, I only harvested around 9 pounds, but it's a crop with huge potential. It's high in volume, nutrient dense, and my family would happily eat more of it through the fall and winter. So in 2026, I'm aiming for about 56 pounds of winter squash. It's also going to replace some of the volume I'm losing from cutting back on tomatoes. Together, sweet peppers and winter squash have the potential to provide a lot more food, more nutrition, and bigger savings to my garden, as long as I can get the conditions right. This year, it's all about learning from last season and giving these crops the care they deserve. In 2026, Brussels sprouts are officially making a comeback in my garden. I didn't grow any of them in 2025, and honestly, I haven't for the last couple years because I haven't had very much luck with them. But when I look at how expensive they are at the store and how much nutrition they provide, they're worth giving another shot. My husband and I really enjoy Brussels sprouts, and while the kids aren't sold yet, I think it's one of those vegetables they'll come around to over time. In 2026, I'm aiming to harvest about 12 pounds of Brussels sprouts. Adding them back to the garden is about a larger shift that we're doing towards growing more nutrient-dense food that justify the space they take up. Beets and carrots are two crops I'm intentionally giving more space to in 2026. They are reliable producers, they store well, and they contribute in a big way to both volume and nutrition to our harvests. In 2025, I harvested about 10 pounds of beets, and I'm looking to increase that to 14 pounds for 2026. Beets are also doing double duty for me this year. I plan on using the young beet leaves as a replacement for spinach in the spring and summer. Carrots are another crop that are consistently earning their space in my garden. Last year, I harvested just under 47 pounds of carrots, and this year I'm aiming for a harvest around 73 pounds. They are something we eat regularly, they grow well in my space, and they replace an item we would be buying otherwise week after week. Green beans are a crop my kids will actually eat, which makes them incredibly valuable in my garden. In 2025, my issue wasn't growing green beans, it was protecting them. Last year, I harvested just over 22 pounds, but I lost a lot of the harvest to hungry birds. As I was growing pole green beans on art trellises over my pathways, they were difficult to cover to protect once I noticed the birds were having their fair share. So in 2026, I'm sticking to bush green beans because they're smaller and easier to protect if need be. Green beans are nutritious, they are expensive to purchase at the store, and they are something that we eat regularly. With better protection in place, I'm hoping to increase my harvest about double to 44 pounds this year. One area I want to strengthen in 2026 is dark leafy greens. From a nutritional standpoint, dark greens like spinach and kale punch way above their weight, and they're something that I want my family to be eating more consistently. In the spring and summer months, I'm planning to use the young beet leaves as a spinach alternative. Then in the fall, I plan to take it a step further. I want to create a cold frame over one of my raised beds to protect a dark leafy greens mix that we can have over the winter months. My hope is that this will give us access to fresh greens during months where fresh produce is limited, it's expensive to purchase, and often the quality is lower. This part of the plan won't add much weight to my total harvest, but it adds something just as important. It fills a nutritional gap. It extends the seasons and makes the garden work for us even during the dark winter months. I also need to talk about my berry bed because it hasn't been treated like the asset that it is. Berries are expensive at the store. They are also loaded with nutrition, and they are one of those foods that really add up over a season. Right now, this bed runs along my back fence, and it has been left to fend for itself. It hasn't received very much in terms of nutrition. It doesn't even get a spring feeding. My raspberries are being held up with strings instead of a real trellis, which makes them much harder to manage and harvest from. I tried protecting the berries with plastic netting. It hasn't worked out very well. It gets tangled easily and it makes harvesting frustrating, which means it often gets skipped. The strawberries really need a proper cage. I also need to rethink my blackberry variety and placement. It's likely not getting enough sun, and it doesn't seem to be as winter hardy as I need for that space. In 2026, this bed is going to get much more attention. It's going to get proper support, proper protection, and proper care. Because perennial crops should improve over time, not stall out from neglect. This is one of those changes that won't necessarily reflect in one year's harvest, but the benefits will pay off for years to come. When I look at all these changes together, it's not about cramming more plants into the garden or just chasing a higher harvest number for the sake of it. It's about using the space more intentionally. It's about growing more crops that reflect the way we eat, supporting our nutrition, and growing crops that are expensive to buy at the store. After reviewing my 2025 season, I don't think I've reached the productivity limits of my space yet. For 2026, I'm aiming to increase our harvest yields from 520 pounds to 650 pounds, while also improving the quality and the value of what we grow. In February, I'll be sharing how I turn these decisions into an actual garden plan, how I map crops to beds, prioritize space in my small garden, and plan for both volume and nutrition from the start of the season. If you're working with limited space and trying to get more food, not just more plants, out of your garden, make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss the series.